Hello, my name is René Micallef. I'm a Jesuit. I teach social ethics and fundamental moral theology here, and I'm honored to be with you and to present to you the granddaughters of Dorothy Day, who are with us for this last moment of our reflection, to speak about her legacy. I'll just say something biographical. So, to my right, Kate, is a writer and artist who is living in Ireland. She's the author of the book Dorothy Day, The World Will Be Saved by Beauty. And she's a contributor to the London Tablet and the Catholic Worker newspaper. And to my right, Martha Hennessy, who is a retired occupational therapist. She volunteers at the Mary House Catholic Worker, and she's a peace activist. She also farms in Vermont and is the grandmother of 9. I don't know if you've coordinated who's not. She's going first, so so welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I really am so grateful to all of the people who have put this event together and made it possible. So thank you so much. I actually threw out my speech, and I apologize to the translators, but I just have decided that I need to say something very different than what I had prepared for today. So I apologize. It's a very rare occasion or situation to have living relatives of someone who's being considered for sainthood. So I'm very grateful that both Kate and I are able to be here with you. And what I really want to do is to share her with others, share her with you. And she did belong to the world, but she also belonged to her family. So I just want to share some stories about family life. When I was 3 years old, I remember sitting on Dorothy's lap. She was a very good storyteller, and she was either coming or going to our house. And I do believe that experience of having my ear on her chest, hearing the resonation of her voice and hearing her heartbeat, that for me was an incarnational experience of God. As a 3-year-old, I had this sense of the presence of God with that one tiny moment that's lodged in my memory. As an 8-year-old, I remember sitting at the dining room table and chewing on a pencil and wiggling and squirming and really wrestling with a poem I was writing, and it was called The Sun. And it was a poem about God. And Dorothy and Tamar, Granny and Ma, were in the kitchen, and I clearly remember their presence. I didn't grow up with my dad. I grew up with my mother and my grandmother, and the two of them were helping me to give birth to this poem. And then my mother printed it out with a hand print press. When I was 16, my sister Mary and I were visiting Dorothy at St. Joe's. She put us to work mopping and sweeping. At one point, she looked at me and said, "Martha, you need to be more like Mary," and I was crushed. Dorothy was right. She understood people's dispositions. She read their souls. And so that memory always stayed with me. What did she mean? I'm sweeping too rapidly. I'm thinking of being the Martha, and here I need to think about a contemplative life. And my last visit with her was when I was 24 years old. I was with my son, who was very active, and she just simply looked at me and said, "I'm too tired, take him out of here." And that was my last visit with her. So the works of mercy, living at Mary House is, I don't do it full time. I don't think I could survive. But I would describe life and work at Mary House as the agony and the ecstasy. The skills that we need at Mary House are, can you cook a lot of food? Can you be nice when you serve the food? And can you help clean up on a regular basis? That's pretty much the essence of the skills that we need at Mary House. And of course, I can't help but think about St. Paul saying, faith without works is meaningless. And so the houses of hospitality and the works of mercy are very concrete. And having a woman come in cold and dirty and giving her clean clothes, or having her pick out clean clothes, take a shower, and help herself to a warm cup of coffee to hold in her hands, that is very direct, that is very concrete, that is very practical. Is it bringing down the Pentagon or any of the other structural sins that we have in place? I don't know, but I do know that that is what we have to do, is to comfort those who are afflicted most immediately in front of us. And lastly, I would say what Dorothy has given me, you pay attention to the suffering of others, and you pray about what it is you need to do about that suffering. And so she taught me to resist the bomb. She handed me this book by John Hershey, Hiroshima. And so I did participate in an action. I am a convicted felon, and that was the most powerful component of my faith journey, back to what is my baptism? What does my baptism mean? And of course, the coldness of our US federal courts and the warmth of the inmates that I shared life with in Danbury were very clear to me and very much reinforced that I was in the right place doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the personal witness, and obviously it helps us complete the picture which we've had with the thought and also the action and the reflection on theological implications of the life and the action of Dorothy Day. But this gives us some vignettes which we can treasure as we leave. I'd like to introduce Kate Hennessy, who, again, I already introduced her, so writer and artist living in Ireland. Please welcome her, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's not on. Yeah. Now it's on. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm kind of like a hanger-on, last-minute invitation. It is such a privilege to be asked to speak about my grandmother. I love talking about her. I prepared a talk, and I prepared a talk, and yet this topic is so emotional for me. I'm going to cry through it, so please forgive me as I do this. In this topic of Dorothy's legacy, there is much to examine, and she has been keeping many of us, historians, theologians, students, writers, thinkers, and of course, generations of Catholic workers, busy and engaged long after her death. She was a prolific writer, speaker, and thinker with a deep intellectual and cultural curiosity. She owned little and gave away much. She held such a spiritual richness and a nuanced, questioning, and profound faith that here we are 45 years after her death, still trying to understand her. Dorothy is still making us nervous, still challenging us, and here I stand after 50 years of trying to unpeel the layers of my understanding of who my grandmother was, not only to others, but to me. My awareness of my grandmother began as a child and a teenager with a slow awakening to her voice, her writings, her presence as both a grandmother and a public figure. I saw nothing unusual. She was simply who she was, our wonderful granny. And I saw nothing unusual in the Catholic worker, and what a fascinating and miraculous thing it was and continues to be. Chaos, and love in action. I lost my grandmother when I was 20, at a time I was struggling to see if the Catholic worker was a place for me, and I began to follow my own path and live my own disasters, as my mother Tamar called them. Then after Tamar's death, and after decades of listening to her speak of her mother, trying to uncover her own layers of understanding, I found myself writing the story of Dorothy and Tamar as best as I could, and more layers began to reveal themselves to me. Even now, I can't claim to have a handle on it all, but I try to do my best. People often comment to me on how taken they are by Dorothy's love for the poor. I have never felt that this is an accurate representation of her life and work. The Catholic worker wasn't the poor. It was her family. It was her community. And its creation came from a deep recognition and response to the human condition and how we are all in need in one way or another. She said there's always some way we can be generous with one another and to truly perceive one another in our humanness, our capacities, our sorrows and sufferings, not as observers or social workers, but as community. Dorothy challenges us in many ways, institutionally, economically, and politically. But most of all, she challenges us personally. She asks us to trust Christ when he says to love one another, our neighbors and our enemies, and to open our doors and our hearts to strangers in need. I think it would be an utter tragedy if those of us who lived privileged and protected lives choose to see Dorothy the saint as a way to comfort ourselves. And I have seen over the years many attempts to tame her, conform her, or when that isn't possible, to dismiss or ignore her. Dorothy asks us to see the world suffering and to not turn away and say, I can do nothing, it is too much for me. There is always work to be done, however small. In one of her more famous quotes, she said, we can throw our pebble in the pond and be confident that its ever-widening circle will reach around the world. We repeat, there is nothing we can do but love, and dear God, please enlarge our hearts to love each other, to love our neighbor, to love our enemy as our friend. After the dropping of the nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Dorothy wrote a powerful column in which she spoke of those who died in the bombing. Perhaps, she wrote, we will breathe their dust into our nostrils, feel them in the fog of New York on our faces, feel them in the rain in the hills of our farm. What an extraordinary way of understanding what it means to be part of the mystical body of Christ. That we are breathing in, no matter where we are in the world, physical suffering of unimaginable scope. We are breathing in the dust of our endless wars, of our bottomless stockpiles of arms and nuclear weapons from which huge profits are being made. We are breathing in the suffering of those we turn away from our doors, often with hatred and prejudice, who are the victims of this violence and who are fleeing the destruction of their homes, their communities, and their environments. We are breathing in the suffering from our relentless attack on our earth and all its beings. Yes, we breathe these in daily. As I gathered my thoughts for this talk, I felt such grief. I am still grieving for my grandmother and for my mother. What strength, what beauty lies within them both. And this grief seems to be intensifying as I grow older and as I peel away these layers of deepening understanding. People often want to hear something personal from us, her grandchildren. At this moment, there is nothing more deeply personal I can think of than to share my grief with you and my love. But I'm curious about this grief, for there is joy and wonder in it too. It is full of sustenance, truthfulness, and a mysterious richness. It is a privilege to feel such sorrow. How blessed I am to have witnessed and to still be witnessing the wonder that is the life of Dorothy Day, through her stories, her writing, and through the heart of her work, the Catholic worker, still drawing to itself the curious and the spiritually and physically hungry. Dorothy still speaks to us of what we long for. She speaks to our basic human desires for peace, justice, and community, led by the call of Christ to do the works of mercy, not only believing in a world where it is easier to be good, but acting as if that world already exists in the here and now. In this discussion of Dorothy's legacy, we can decide that we know who she is and define her under our terms. Or we can open ourselves up to the complex, contrary, paradoxical, and mysteriousness of her life in all of her fulsomeness, in all of her power. I believe that she insists on us making a simple choice. Do we open our hearts or do we close them? What does it take to have this revolution of the heart that Dorothy spoke of? I suggest that we all be terrified of what she is asking of us, to gaze clearly on what is in the here and now, to grasp faith and trust with all we have, even if it is by our bleeding fingertips, to face our fears, to face our hypocrisies, to face our deep sense of failure, to do the work however we are called to do it, and to live with loving kindness, generosity, hospitality, and a deep awareness of beauty. And above all, to let love guide us, as imperfect as we are in our capabilities for love. Love, that most mysterious force of all, that power that we all hold within us, and that is the one true connection with God. And yes, I feel grief in my love. We will all feel grief in our love as we open our hearts, for we will now know what we have and what we are in danger of losing. What a gift, what a task we all have before us. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your grief also, a very, very personal note, but also these challenges, these questions which, and I think which Dorothy would challenge us with the risk of making a radical figure something normal, something which becomes tamed in some way, or relevant for the 1960s, for that generation, and not longer relevant for us, is a risk. And so thank you for bringing home those final comments and those questions which we will hopefully take with us from this meeting. I'd like to thank everyone who was part of this event, our sponsors, our partners, so Dorothy Day Guild, Lay Center, Manhattan University, and Notre Dame Rome. Also our translators, the volunteers, the technicians, and everyone. Thank you very much for being here, for sharing this time with us. We thought of doing something which remind us also of the hospitality of Dorothy Day. So we have a little reception, but it's not just here. So we are also offering a nice dinner for homeless persons this evening or another evening who will in some way be part of this event. I think this is what Dorothy Day would do. And we will have something simpler in order to also be in communion with them. It's just, again, a number of people here who are from the United States. We're preparing for Thanksgiving, and it's something which I think we all should give thanks. So there's something festive, but we're going to celebrate with soup, which I think would be what Dorothy would do, and some other things. So enjoy yourself, enjoy the little meal which we have prepared. And have a nice evening. For those who are leaving, enjoy. Those who are visiting, enjoy your time in Rome. Thank you. Obviously, don't forget to hand in your headsets. Those who used the headsets for translation.